Hey guys, Jordan Schumacher here. In this video, we're going to talk about the secret to staying consistent with your content creation. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that this is probably the one thing that I struggle with the most, especially on my YouTube channel, is staying consistent with my content publication schedule. If you've been following me, there's been times where I haven't posted a video in months, and I actually get emails from people like asking me if I had died and if I'm okay. And the short answer is yes, I am always okay. It's never anything negative. It just comes down to I get so busy and don't prioritize the creation of content that I don't have time to do it, and then it slips and another week goes by and another week goes by and just kind of becomes this vicious cycle. And it also doesn't help that this is just something that I do on the side. This isn't my full-time job, nor do I want it to be my full-time job, and that's also a challenge. And so I'm asked questions by a lot of people who maybe they have a full-time job, they're trying to find new clients, they're trying to kind of break into this digital marketing thing and ultimately build up an audience for themselves and just like start to create content and kind of build up an audience and get consistent with it. And the number one challenge is staying consistent and staying on a sustainable content creation cycle, right? And like I said, this is something that I've struggled with for a long time. And I think that there's three kind of secrets, if you will, to staying consistent with your content creation. At least there have been for me. And when I follow these three things, I stay consistent, I build motivation, I build momentum, and content gets published and good things start to happen. If I forget about these three things or I get lazy and I don't execute on these three things, all of a sudden my publication schedule just kind of grinds to a halt. And the reality is, with the internet where it is in 2019 coming into 2020, the reality is if you're not at least consistently publishing content, you're pretty much irrelevant, right? There's no reason for anyone to pay attention to you if you're not going to stay consistent. You don't have to put out 45 pieces of content a day, but you do have to stay consistent, at least publish, one thing a week, one thing every 2 weeks, whatever that looks like for you. And for me, kind of the three keys to staying consistent with my content creation are this. So number one is really to batch time. And so what do I mean by that? Well, for me, for this YouTube channel, for example, I post one video, at least one video every single Tuesday. And then I publish in my Facebook group, The Art of Online Advertising. It's free if you're not a member. I highly recommend it. I publish in there 2 to 3 times per week. And so what I used to do and what I epically failed at staying consistent with was just every week I'd sit down and think, okay, what's the video I want to record, and what are the 2 to 3 Facebook posts that I want to write for the group for this week? And so it would be Tuesday, and I'd sit down and think, okay, I need to record a video. What video do I want to record? And then I'd think about it, and then if I had time, I would try and whip out my phone and do a recording, and then edit it, and then publish it, and then remember I have to write a Facebook post, and I would sit down and think, okay, what should I write about? And then I would write it, and then I would sit and try and edit it, and then I would try and post it, and it was just incredibly inefficient. I was starting from zero every single time. Every week I absolutely just hated it because I felt like I was on a treadmill. I felt like I had to work pretty hard just to tread water, keep my head above water, and not fall behind on this pretty easy schedule that I had set for myself. And it was all because I wasn't batching my time. And so what I've started doing, which has been massively impactful, is I've started batching my time and actually setting aside, okay, for these 2 hours, I'm going to record content. For these 2 hours, I'm going to write my Facebook posts for the rest of the month, right? And then for these 2 hours, I'm going to edit and I'm going to schedule for publication. And so what's actually happened is, instead of spreading out this content creation process, which, let's say, it used to, when I would do it just in time, it would take me, let's call it 10 hours a month to record and publish 4 videos and 12 Facebook posts. Let's say that took me 10 hours a month. That's probably a conservative estimate. Now, instead of spreading that 10 hours across the entire month, I've condensed it down into 2 or 3 days of focused effort, and then I can just publish that content and not think about it again. Be done with it, can focus the rest of the month on any other priorities that I have. But what I didn't realize was there is an enormous amount of time that you are spending when you switch any sort of task or set up to do any other sort of task, which is known as set up costs or set up time or switching costs, right? And so anytime you switch activities, it takes you, whether you realize it or not, it takes you a minute to actually kind of get in the right frame of mind to actually start executing on those activities. You got to open up, if you're recording a video, you got to set up your camera, you got to set up your little tripod thing, you've got to open up your software, you've got to take a minute to think about, okay, like what am I going to say? Like this is pretty much off the cuff because I'm so ruthless about eliminating setup costs. But if you want to be any more scripted, you're going to have to like think through what that's going to be. If you're trying to be too scripted, you're probably going to have to do multiple takes, and then that's going to require editing. And so anytime you switch tasks, it takes 30 to 50% more time to actually switch that task. And so by batching everything all at once, where I've got my camera gear set up, I've got my software open, and I'm just kind of going, I can roll into the next video without having to set everything back up again. And so actually that saved me 30 to 50% of the amount of time it took me to actually record the videos. Same thing goes for writing Facebook posts. I don't have to sit down and really get in the writer's frame of mind. I can just hammer out the posts and I'm done. So that's secret number 1, which is batching your time. The second thing, and this kind of actually goes hand in hand with batching your time, but it comes down to creating a backlog. And what is a backlog? A backlog is simply your game plan for future content that you are going to create. And so honestly, the biggest hurdle, the biggest bottleneck for most people when they're trying to create content is they sit down and they think, well, now what am I going to talk about? What am I going to say now? And so the most efficient thing you can do for your content creation is to dedicate 1 hour a week, 1 hour a month, whatever that looks like, and just sit down and brainstorm a list of content ideas that you can create content about. Put them in order, and then when you sit down your once a week or once a month or whenever you've batched time to actually create that content, you don't even have to worry about thinking, okay, what should I create content about? You just go to your backlog and you just start working your way down the list. And assuming you understand your topic, it's already in the list. You don't have to give it much thought. It's like going to the gym, right? If you have a plan of what you're going to do at the gym, you're far more likely to go to the gym and get something productive done because you don't have to think about it. But if every single day, unless you are very experienced at the gym and really love going to the gym, if every single day you wake up and think, well, I don't know what I'm going to do at the gym, the chances of you actually going to the gym are very, very, very little, if at all. And so it's very similar to that, is to actually batch the time to actually come up with these ideas, come up with those ideas, and then batch the time to execute on those ideas. And the third thing, which really goes along with the batching, is publish in advance. And so actually could probably say schedule in advance. So what do I mean by this? As someone who is creating content of any form, there is nothing more demotivating than to feel like you're just on this never-ending treadmill that you can't get off of creating new content. There's going to be days where you're just like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I want to focus on something else. And if you're on that treadmill, you don't have a choice. If, however, you do a good job of batching these things in advance and you actually create every time you batch content creation cycle, you create 10 to 20% more than what you need. What that's going to allow you to do after a few weeks is actually be scheduling your content in advance. So for me, for example, I went from every week, it was a never-ending treadmill of just like video, a couple Facebook posts, and email if I'm lucky. And like that was just exhausting every single week, incredibly demotivating, and I'd be lucky if I even got that done, let alone, anything else that I wanted to do. Because keep in mind, this is not my full-time gig. This is just something that I do on the side because I enjoy doing it, but I wasn't enjoying it. And so what I started doing was I said, okay, I'm going to batch this content creation at the beginning of the month. I'm going to schedule it all out in advance, and then I don't have to worry about it until the next month. And if halfway through this month I'm feeling super motivated, then I'll batch it again and I can get next month's done. And so you are watching this video. I'm not sure when it's going to be scheduled, but the chances are I recorded this video almost a month ago. And being diligent and being intentional around scheduling that time and actually taking the time and the foresight to schedule this content in advance is a massive weight off your shoulders. It gets you off the feeling that you're on this never-ending treadmill, and it actually makes you feel like you're kind of ahead of the game, like you're building something that has some momentum without you, and it feels like you're building much more of an asset as opposed to just this never-ending task, this treadmill that you can't get off of. And so if there were three pieces of advice I could give to anyone looking to be more consistent with their content creation, it's batch your time, create a backlog, so never have to sit down and wonder what you're going to work on. Create that list in advance, and then schedule your content in advance. Give yourself at least a 2-week buffer of your content creation so that if you miss a day, even if you miss a week, it's not the end of the world. You don't kind of fall off that wagon. You still have that content game plan in place that's going to be published on autopilot. You're fine. You have buffer, and it doesn't feel like you're on a never-ending treadmill. So if you're someone who does struggle with content creation, if you're someone who got value out of this video, it would mean the world to me if you subscribe, and please leave your comments. Are you struggling with being consistent with your content creation? What do you do to overcome that? And do you use any of these? Do you use anything else? Would love to hear it. Leave a comment down below. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.